Good evening, and welcome to another AirSats episode of Diatribes from the Voice of Doom. Now, here's your ergonomic and erroneous host, Voice of Doom. Hello. Alright, I figured I'd do another diatribe since it's one of my few days off that they're actually giving me. And I always plan to get a lot done on my day off, which I do not, because I'm kind of fatigued from just working 6 days a week, and so I waste the day and then I regret it. But I'll try to at least do a diatribe and maybe do a few things. But wanted to talk about the future, what little we have left of it, and here's my reasoning for why. I watch YouTube mostly. I can find plenty of stuff to watch. I could go on for millions of years and not even make a dent in how much YouTube has to offer. So I don't need a whole lot of streaming apps or large screen televisions or this or that to entertain myself. I am perfectly happy being addicted to one platform, and so I watch YouTube. And I've noticed some very obvious and maybe subtle at the same time changes over the years. And it has to do with technology and its progress and how it is entertaining and how it brings out a lot of real creative stuff from people who have managed to use AI to create shorts and create this and that. But it's getting to the point where you don't know what's real anymore. It's very hard to distinguish the news from fake news, from totally made up synthetic news. So right now what I see on the shorts is things like, King Charles has abdicated and all this is happening in the royal family, and if it was true it would be on the mainstream media. At least, the ones that I watch, who if King Charles abdicated it would be news, at least for a day or two. So all this stuff is being made up and it's projected as being real news, and it's getting annoying because I don't know what's real anymore. I haven't known it for a long time. Now, I watch the YouTube and inevitably, and I might even pay their stupid premium to not have to watch commercials, because I watch enough YouTube that if I paid 10 or 12 or 13 bucks a month, which is way less than my cable bill was, I would not be bothered with commercials that are fake. They are fake people. They are not real. You can tell by listening to them. You can tell by watching their lips and watching their facial expressions that these commercials are AI. And I've already told you that they come up with most outlandish claims, and they all have the same scripts to try to sell a product that will regrow your teeth. Just swish this in your mouth every night before bed and your teeth will all grow back. Or this will clear your lungs out. Or here's a way, name anything, and there's a fake commercial about curing every ailment you could have and solving every problem you may have. So I'm really sick of that, and I don't want to really deal with that anymore. I did get sucked into a tooth thing where I needed some a bottom plate, and I bought these fake teeth because it showed people putting in these teeth in and chewing an apple and eating corn on the cob. Well, I got it, and it was not anything like what they promised. And I didn't send it back because I don't do that. I just say I made a mistake. I won't do that again. I don't bother sending things back. They knew it was a ripoff when they sent it, and they're just hoping that if there's 10% of the people like me that don't send it back, then they're fine. So, this fakeness. Okay. Watching Fox, Lawrence, whatever his name is, on Fox and Friends, was interviewing a guy who is a self-admitted crowd provider. He openly admits that they pay people to protest. I mean, it's all common knowledge now that people are getting paid to protest, but it's never been so openly and blatantly admitted that, yeah, we do this. Now, back in the day, in the 60s and 70s, they protested, and they weren't getting paid to do it. And some were agitators, and some were just people that were Antifa types. Back in the 60s and 70s, they were anarchists, they were socialists, they were this, they were that, but they didn't like the war in Vietnam. And most people just took it for granted that we had to be there for whatever reason. But after a few years, it got to be, well, wait a minute. What are we gaining from this? From having soldiers be shipped off to Vietnam into a real zoo, into a conflict that was not meant to be resolved. And then, instead of mostly students and anarchists out on the street, the middle class, the shopkeepers, the mothers and fathers were out on the mall of Washington, D.C. protesting. And they weren't getting paid. And I know that when Nixon saw that, he realized it's over. We have to end this by a hook or crook. And he ended it in a way he thought was the best way possible, which was a failure. They should have just said, we give up, instead of pretending to have a peace agreement. But that's just the history of protests as I saw them. And there's been protests here and protests there. There was the right-wingers doing their protests. And then Orangey came along, and the protests reached a fever pitch, one way or the other. But now we're hearing that there's actually cottage industries that distribute the money paid by whoever, Soros, or whatever NGOs or whatever, put up the money, because they're not going to do it for nothing, to pay protesters. I mean, they're not going to start a business saying we're going to pay out of our own pocket for people to protest when there's no return on your investment. The return on the investment is Soros giving this company $10 million to say, let's have a protest here or a protest there. Okay, now, then it's not really a protest, is it? It's performance art. Now let's go to the present day, Washington, D.C. Crime is ridiculous. You're not safe in that city in most parts. And so Orangey said, I have the power as the chief executive to send in the National Guard and send in extra help to clean up this District of Columbia, which is not a state. So its jurisdiction and its chain of command and its, things are different than every other state. But he wants to clean up crime, and the people that are cheering him on are the people that have been victims of crimes. And most of the criminality is in the areas which are preponderantly people of color. Now, there's going to be a hard time solving problems in this country if you say that we can't do anything about crime in this area because it's all people of color. There's no winning. If you don't fight the crime, you're a racist, and if you do fight the crime, you're a racist. Now let's get on to the more practical and pragmatic points of fighting crime. Now, you commit a crime, and you should be tried, and if convicted, you should do time in jail or prison. And it's getting to the point where it's not feasible to put everybody in prison who's committed a crime. Otherwise, this whole country would be one big prison. And you could have one or two states set aside for law-abiding people. Nebraska, South Dakota, Utah, whatever. They will be set aside for the law-abiding, and the rest of the country will be a prison. Because that's how many criminals there are, because it's hard to get by in this world. And with the preponderance of the media and entertainment, and people able to see how other people live, they are envious. They want to be rich too. They want to have a big mansion. They want to eat lobster every day. They want to travel first class and do all kinds of things. And there was a time when the boomers set up this country so that they could do just that. They bought their houses for $20,000. They sold them for $750,000. They got jobs in whatever sector and got pensions for $100,000 a year after they retired and put all their money in the stock market, which has gone up from $2,000 back in 1972 to $45,000 in 2025. So the boomers had it all figured out how they were going to rape and pillage and gut this country and bleed it dry for their own personal well-being, and they did well doing that. But now you have the Xers and you have the Gen Zers and you have the millennials, and they are not able to maintain that because they have to buy their house for $450,000 and hope that the bottom don't drop out of the market. And who knows what their mortgage is, but it's just very hard now. What else do we have happening in the world that's going to make it very difficult? Well, AI is going to grow exponentially. I saw some footage about Amazon. They don't have human beings plucking boxes off shelves anymore. They got robots doing it. So how many thousands of jobs did Amazon have for people making $15 to $25 an hour to work like slaves? Because my wife worked at Amazon and she said it was draconian. And now they don't have human beings working there, so what are those human beings going to do? Every time they try to do something, they will get replaced by AI. And then they applaud and laud and talk about how great it is. All I do is type in a few things into Grok or whatever the hell it is, and it just gave me a whole spreadsheet and a whole PowerPoint presentation and the whole thing in like 10 seconds. It would have taken us weeks to do this. Well, since AI did it in 10 seconds, I guess your jobs are kind of like defuncted, aren't they? We don't need you. You can have the CEO of the company type in a few things to Grok and make everything hum without the added inconvenience of paying people a salary to do jobs. So we have a situation where Orangey wants to fight crime. They call him Batman now, facetiously. He wants to fight crime, and that means more people go to prison, which is racist because they're mostly people of minority persuasion. And since they can't afford lawyers like Caucasians can, then they end up going to prison. So we have millions and millions of people in prison. Probably, the 350 million in America, maybe 200 million are actually in prison. And we have robot guards. So we don't need them either. We don't need people to guard them. And I'm sure if you have a robot guard, then most of the prisoners would probably be kept in line rather well. So, 200 million people in prison, and the rest of the people are out of work because of AI. So what kind of world are we going to have? And since everything's fake and we don't know anything about what's really going on, then we're in a bit of a pickle, aren't we? And that's why I stick to my initial postulate that I started at the beginning of this program, the beginning of this Diatribe's channel, that we're doomed. And there's no argument against that. Please don't try. The best thing we can do is try to struggle and maintain our life as best we can, and hope that there's a benevolent despot out there, despot, that will say, look, we have 100 million people that still aren't in prison yet, so we have to take care of them because there's no work to be done. So we will have to move to a socialist kind of a situation where people are being taken care of and being paid for doing nothing. So that's going to be a big project. That's going to be a big problem because people want different levels of lifestyle. One person wants a big house on the hill with a pool and a 10-car garage, and another person is happy just living down in the valley with a 2-bedroom manufactured home. So what do you do when there's very few people that are actually earning? So it's a big problem. And I think people should think about it. But lastly, as a coda, since this is getting long already, Orangey's in Anchorage with visiting Putin, as they call him, because people can't pronounce their T's in this day and age because they're too lazy to say Putin. They're meeting about how to end this Ukraine war. Now, I don't understand the whole thing. If I was Russia and I wanted territory in Ukraine, I would just take it. Instead of having hundreds of thousands of people die over a period of 2 or 3 years and get nowhere, just like Vietnam, make absolutely no progress, but just keep fighting and not make any progress. Why shouldn't Russia just take what they want and say, if you're going to do anything about it, we'll obliterate you? Oh, so public opinion, the world would be aghast. Well, so what if the world's aghast? People are dying anyway. Just take the land that you want. I don't understand this whole thing. You're going to negotiate peace at this point? It's just a perpetual conflict that keep the military industrial across the globe busy making weapons. And the money can come from the printing press, and it keeps a few more people working, who will lose their job when AI takes over the manufacture and distribution of weaponry. So we're doomed. Come on. I'm only working now just to keep things going for now. There will be a day very soon, probably in a few months, where no one will pay any bills because they won't have a job and they won't have money. And they'll hold up in their house until the authorities come, and then there'll be firefights. And that's the way it's going to be. So I'll leave it there. I said enough. It's 20 minutes. Way too long. I'm sorry. But I had to get this off my chest because I'm sick of the fakery. I'm sick of the, fake outrage about things where they're not outraged about anything. They don't even know what they're talking about. They're just getting paid to go out in the street. So everything's synthetic. Everything's ersatz. Everything is phony. And we don't know what reality is anymore. So just get on your magic carpet ride, and we'll ride it out together. Alright, that's it. I didn't say much, but I think I gave you a little something to think about. Have a good night. Goodbye.